there's nobody. Or people come in for one little thing and then leave or scurry right out. It's like,
That's why, then they can be closest to the door.
please stay. Actually, we could lock the door.
I don't think we can, actually.
You're on.
Okay, wonderful. Well, let's get started, folks. And just hello, hi. Just a quick reminder, if you feel like you need to have a conversation amongst yourselves, please just step outside so that we don't get distracted and the mics don't pick up other conversations. And the thousands of adoring fans watching at home can pay attention to the conversations that happen between the board and the podium. Cool? Thanks. So welcome everyone to the Lincolnville Select Board meeting. It is the 25th of September. We do have Selectman Hand is excused for work. And I think before we get going, Selectman D. Michael Ray, would you care to read the quote
That
of
would
the
be
evening?
me. Okay. Well, it is the dull man who is always sure, and the sure man who is always dull. H.L. Mencken.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to open the podium now for any non-agenda items. Seeing no one leaping up, let's move along to the administrator's report.
I just wanted to let the board know beyond the agenda. I've been chasing back and forth with email and phone with the project manager for the MDOT parking project at the beach. They are apparently just starting to scratch the surface on that, and at some point we'll be reaching out to the town when they actually know what how the project's progressing or how they proceeded to be progressing. But I now have a name for that, so that's good. Our Townhouse Road box culvert project is underway. The bypass culvert is in, and then as soon as we have a date for delivery of the box culvert, they'll actually start the major excavation, and that road will be closed. But right now it looks like it's closed when you go up there. So before one, public safety has been notified, so they're aware of which houses they can access which way. Excuse me. We spent a fair amount of time over the last couple of weeks prepping for Hurricane Lee, which didn't quite arrive, but tropical storm remnants of Lee did arrive, and then the cleanup after that, but we're pretty well put back together. Our insurance inspector was here just before the storm to look at a number of our facilities. I am anticipating, as they usually do, they're going to create some sort of list of action items for us, which we will then get going on repairing and changing. I attended the Jensen Baird client seminar last week, learned about the most recent session of changes to the law that impact municipalities, and there's a lot. Oh boy. But good and informative session. We haven't had any changes besides additional securing for the replacement of the replacement hoist at the beach. Still have hydraulics and electrical to go. And as of hopefully Thursday, we'll be connected to the World Wide Web with the camera there, and we put a check mark beside that project and be broadcasting constantly for that. Outside of that, in the agenda, that's all it.
Okay, any questions for David under the administrator's report?
David, what is the end date for the shingle replacement down to Bridgman Park?
Or end of October.
Oh, okay.
We have, that triggers my mind, we have commenced with the wood preservation of the restaining of that. They can work around each other apparently.
Okay.
All right, anything else? All right, let's move along to upcoming meetings and announcements.
All meetings are here in the town office unless announced otherwise. Lakes and Ponds Committee meets Tuesday, September 26th, 7 p.m. Planning Board meets Wednesday, September 27th, 7 p.m. Comprehensive Plan Review Committee is scheduled to meet Thursday, September 28th, 6:30. Lincolnville Central School Committee meets on Monday, October 2nd, 6 p.m. at the Lincolnville Central School. The town office will be closed on Monday, October 9th in observance of Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day. And the select board therefore will meet next on Tuesday, October 10th at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Are there any upcoming community events anyone wishes to share? Seeing nothing, move along to the meeting minutes. We do have 2 sets of meeting minutes, and so I will entertain a motion for the first, please.
I move that the board approve the September 11th, 2023 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And there is a second set.
I move that the board approve the September 18th, 2023 meeting minutes as presented.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. An upward hand motion.
Well, no, I meant we did a wave.
Oh.
Started.
We should effort for that. Anyhow, moving along to agenda item number 6, we have the appointment of the Public Facilities Director, and the board has finished its extensive interview process, months, and with over 20 applicants and several highly qualified candidates. The board, I think, is ready to make its difficult decision amongst the finalists that we interviewed. And David, if there's nothing else you want to add right now, I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board appoint Matthew Dean as Public Facilities Director, Deputy Harbor Master, alternate Code Enforcement Officer, and alternate Plumbing Inspector with a weekly salary of $1,250 and a 6-month probationary period.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. I think it's worth noting that we have Matt Dean here in the audience this evening. He is a Hope native, Camden resident, graduate of Camden Hills Regional High School, and he is now retired from the United States Coast Guard after 23 years of service as a Chief Petty Officer. He's a certified local plumbing inspector and code enforcement officer already, and has lifelong experience with earthwork operations, has completed the National Incident Command System Training, ICS 100, 200, 300, 700, 800 certified, as well as having an all oceans unlimited tonnage license. So those are the certifications that he holds. So is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And would you like to come up and address the adoring public briefly, perhaps? Okay, fair enough. You'll be getting plenty of public face time, I'm sure. Thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Thank you, Matt.
And we look forward to working with you. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so moving along, we have a presentation regarding the Calderwood Lane reconstruction. It's an update, and we invited our neighbors on Calderwood Lane to attend. David, would you care to speak to this at all?
Just a little bit. We have had numerous concerns and complaints about the condition of Calderwood Lane for a number of years, perhaps forever. And somebody a couple of years ago shared with us some nice pictures that are over there on the entry wall. This past year, town meeting appropriated some funds for the select board to engage a consultant in the design of the roadway. Select board chose Oliver Associates from Winterport to do that work. Bill is here. Bill, you're on the hot seat. You can walk right up to the
Welcome.
podium. I don't know if you want to bring Nick with you or not. But this is Bill Oliver from Oliver Associates in Winterport.
Nice to be here.
Who's gonna-
Thank
I
you.
have Nick Delmonico, one of our senior designers. I've got a brief presentation and agenda that I'll pass around. And also to the residents.
Sure, yeah. Oh, he's got one. Maybe one for Steve. I think Melissa would like one also. And we'll get one to Steve.
So as David said, I'm Bill Oliver. I'm a senior partner at Oliver Associates in Winterport. We're a 65-person civil and environmental engineering firm. We do this type of work for about 75 towns and water and sewer districts around the state of Maine. And back in May, we were retained by the town of Lincolnville to look at the Calderwood Lane Road and to offer a design to upgrade it. So I've got a brief handout, which will just go through some of my talking points. If you look at the first page, I've always thought a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I thought I would bring in 2 just for that reason. But
Well, okay.
sometimes
Yep.
during a construction project, when the whole area is disrupted, it's important to know where we're going with this. So right now, the reason we're doing this project and the reason the town's looking at it is that we want to take these existing spring conditions, which are typical in Maine, but not desirable if you live there, and create the bottom picture, a nice paved road with gravel shoulders that will last for years to come. So on page 2, I think it's important sometimes, or maybe interesting, to think, well, why do roads fail? And why is this road failing? Why is it in such poor condition? So the reason is there's a lot of factors, but the most important causes of road failure is poorly drained soils, meaning soils with a high clay and silty content. And what happens is that water gets logged between the individual clay and silt particles and stays in there, gets trapped in there. When you put loadings from tires on clay and water, it doesn't have anything to resist it, so it pushes down into the roadbed. Water doesn't have any resistance. If you drive through a mud puddle, your tire goes in. So it's all left to the clay, and clay is based on silica particles, negatively charged particles, and when you push on those with all the water between them, they kind of slide apart. So over time, the road ruts in, and you get what you see in these pictures here. So we need to do something about the water and the clay. And on the next page, page 3, this kind of shows what happens when a vehicle drives over clay and water. So this is what happens if you get excited in the summer after it rains and drive on your lawn, just driving on clay, and you end up running and get your car stuck. So there's a really fine dashed line here that shows the lawn or road surface before the tires got onto it. And then there's a wavy line which shows what happens, how it gets rutted. What's happening here is that the tire load is deforming the road. It's pushing down on the clay, it's pushing out the water, and it's rutting. And when you do that, there's no resistance to the wheel, so it just keeps going deeper and deeper. And over time, the native soil down below the road, which is usually clay and silt and just not good materials, will get pumped up into the roadbed. And it just gets worse year after year after year. So the idea is control the water and have good gravel. And on page 4, the difference between gravel, well-graded gravel, and clay is that gravel is made of big discrete particles which lock together under load, and then they can resist the force that's being applied by the tires. And the interesting thing about the way tire loads get applied is they tend to move down from a point load on the road surface to kind of a conical 30-degree, 45-degree cone. So if you look at this picture here, as you get down deeper in the gravel, the area of that cone gets wider and wider and wider, which means you have more square feet of area that's taken that load. So at some point in time, if there's enough good gravel there, you'll get down so you're not deforming the clay down below the road. So it's important to have a good depth of gravel. You don't have that, obviously, on Calderwood Lane. So the key is to have enough depth, and usually you need, for a road like this, between 18 inches and maybe 21 inches of gravel depth, so that there's enough resistance and the load is spread out before it hits the clay native soil down below. On page 5, so the other thing is water control. And if the soil is waterlogged, it has no load-bearing capacity. So you want to be able to get the water out from under the roadbed so it will drain. And the other thing is, especially in Maine, water in the road ends up freezing in the wintertime. And if you've ever left a milk bottle out on your step when they used to have milk bottles, when things freeze, they expand. So if the soil and the water expands, you get a pothole in the spring, and then the road gets even worse. So we want to get the water out, and the key is to have a drainage system where the ditches are lower than the road base, so the water can move out and flow away by gravity. So usually when a road is failing, it's bad drainage, bad soils. On page 6, this is what a properly designed road should look like. So what we want to do on Calderwood Lane is go in there, box out all the poor gravel, take it down a couple of feet, and then put back a good cross-section like this. So what you can see here is at the surface you have pavement. We're looking at 4 inches to go on the road there. And then you want 6 inches of good, well-graded base material that doesn't have a lot of heavy or large rocks in it, just so they don't pop up through the pavement. And then you usually want to have between 12 inches and 15 inches of sub-base, a little bit heavier gravel that gets down over the clay. And so by doing that depth of 21 inches, by the time the wheel load gets through the pavement and down to the clay underneath the road, the cone is wide enough so there's no real loading. It's low pounds per square foot. Also, the ditches on the sides of the road will need to extend down below the lowest part of the roadbed, so the water runs out of it, if you can do that. And on newer road designs, newer being like the last 20 or 30 years, you put filter fabric down between the last gravel layer and the clay layer, and that helps to keep the clay from pumping up into the roadbed and contaminating it. So that's what we're looking to do. And then at the surface of the road, you generally slope the pavement from the center line in both directions, so water runs off into the ditches. So that's what we hope to accomplish there. So on page 7, we'll give you enough information on why roads work and why they don't work. Why has Calderwood Lane performed so poorly? Well, the reason is, for one thing, excessive clay in the soil. We did soils borings this summer, and we're looking at clay content of 10 to 15% clay. And MDOT roads, you can't go above 5%. So the road is heavily saturated with clay and silt and just poor materials. There's very poor drainage. Where there are ditches, they don't extend down below the roadbed, so you don't have positive drainage and the road stays wet all the time. And there isn't enough depth of good soil. It's shallowed down to the native soil. So there's just no resistance to wheel loadings, and every spring you get the rutting that you're seeing. Page 8. So we spent quite a bit of time with David looking at different options here, and we want to try to fit in a road within the area that exists without taking down a lot of trees or impacting the rock walls, that type of thing. So what we can fit in there are 2 9-foot lanes, which is perfectly acceptable for a rural road like this. 2 9-foot paved lanes, and then on either side of the lanes for the first 1,300 feet, we're going to have 2-foot wide gravel shoulders. And then the slopes down into the ditches, which go below the road base, with filter fabric down over that. So that's the intended design. And on page 9, as you get up towards the last 900 feet of Calderwood Lane, the road narrows in a little bit. So we want to continue with the 9-foot lanes, but instead of 2-foot shoulders, it'll be just 1-foot shoulder. And the reason for that is to fit in drainage and not disrupt the rock walls up there, we need to have a little bit narrower cross section. So that's what this is showing here. So the same design, except less gravel shoulder. On page 10, the other goals of the project would be, as you get down to Route 173, right now there's a wide apron as you meet the state road. We're going to narrow that up, and I'll show a picture in a minute, and turn that at 90 degrees, so you just have a better place to stop and have it, to look at traffic coming from both ways. You don't really need that huge apron for a road this size. You really want to minimize rock walls. We're kind of, in all our projects, we don't like to disrupt rock walls because they're just a good heritage for a community. So we're trying to avoid that. We want to limit the tree removal. So David's already worked with the hydro to cut down some of the dead trees in there. And we're going to take down trees that might have roots under the road, or that have like just scrub brush and growth along the sides. But in general, we're not looking at clear cutting the area at all. We're going to maintain the center line of the road, so the elevations of the road, it'll be smoothed out, but in general, where the center of the road is now is about where it's going to be in the future. We're going to be replacing mailbox posts, because as they excavate the road out, they're going to disrupt your posts. So we'll put new posts back and then reset your mailbox on top of that. And then one of the things people always ask on road jobs is, what about access to my property? And during these kind of projects, we'll work very hard to with each resident to make sure that the contractor gives you access to your property to the extent possible. Maybe times when they're digging right in front, but we try to coordinate with the homeowner to let them know, like, we're going to be digging here, can you move your car down the road for just a little bit? So on the next couple of pages, there's 3 pullouts, and after this meeting here, Nick and I are going to sit in the conference room. If you want to talk to us about getting into a property, any concerns you have, we'll do that and go over these plans with you. But these just show the road starting down at Route 173. It just shows the 2 9-foot lanes, the the paved road, the 2-foot gravel shoulders, the ditches that we're putting in. And the next one shows the same thing, up a few, like 700 feet to 1,500 feet. And then the third one shows the end of the road. And so at the very end, we're looking at putting in a turnaround for school buses and plow trucks by getting an easement from one of the homeowners up there that David has had meetings with. And then finally, on the last slide, so what is the schedule? Well, dependent on funding and everything else, we designed this over the summer of this year. We're meeting here tonight to get public input and individual meetings with the residents, and also from the select board. Once we get all the public input, we'll make final revisions to the plans, and then they'll be ready to go out to bid. I'll do a cost estimate to see where we think we are. As you know, this is a difficult construction time in the construction economy. Bids are coming in high, so we need to get a good estimate of what the project might cost. We'll then present that back to the town for funding and budget expectations. And the idea would be then to bid a final set of plans out to general contractors over the late fall, early winter, to try to get something lined up for 2024 construction. And depending on getting good bids and having enough money in your budget, this job should be done next year. Probably allow maybe 4 to 6 months for it to from start to finish. So that's where we are on the Calderwood Lane project.
Thank you so
Are there any
much.
questions?
Questions from the board?
I have one. If, so, say the project could get started in September next year. 4 to 6 months puts us into the winter, and freezing, is that an issue?
It would be a huge issue. So we would want to bid it this fall, this
Right.
winter, start the work as soon as the frost off the ground, say,
Okay.
May, June, and then 4 to 6 months after that. Paving plants usually close by Thanksgiving, and so it has to all be paved before winter.
Yeah, it would be that careful balance of looking what funds we have available until the
Right.
end of this
So we're not
fiscal
looking at,
year.
right,
And then,
next year's budget as a time to be starting. We want
correct.
to start this.
So it's something we'll be noodling over very soon.
Yeah, we have, the town set aside money for gravel road improvements. Question is, do we have enough? And that's where, once we can hone in on the design, then Bill and his team can go to work on estimating how much money we're going to need. And then we may have to we'll have to come back and revisit that with a timeline with you folks anyway. So there may be a need for a special town meeting, or we were fortunate that we got a pretty good sized grant for some of the work on Townhouse Road. So there's some monies available that we don't need to spend it. So we have some flexibility, but the bidding climate's going to be our wild card in the whole thing.
Any other questions from the board?
So 2 9-foot lanes and a foot of shoulder on each side, and then a ditch on both sides?
I should have mentioned on that back part, we don't have room to put the ditches in and maintain the rock walls. So let's go back to, thank you for bringing that up. Let's go back to,
So I'm on page 9.
look at page 9.
Yeah.
So where you don't have enough width to put in the ditches you want, you can also put in under drain. And so there'll be a pipe down below the road base along that whole 900 feet. So the road base will drain into the pipe, and then it will outlet into the next ditch down.
Well, that's a good thing. I'm just thinking of the existing road that's there now, which obviously I think everybody can agree is not working. But it's a single lane, or a lane and a half right now, at best. That's a pretty wide road for that.
What, 2 9-foot lanes?
Yeah.
Well, it's
For
actually,
something that's not a state highway.
yeah, it's actually narrower than your ordinance for subdivisions for a rural road. But it meets national standards for a road of that size. So most of the time you'd be putting in 10-foot roads, 10-foot lanes in your own ordinance, right? Your subdivision ordinance, right? So are you concerned it's too wide, or?
I'm concerned about preserving a lot of what we have there. Not a terrible road. I'm not concerned about preserving that, but I'm concerned about, and I know you've expressed concern about not taking hardly any of the stone walls, and there's going to be a fair amount of trees and everything, but I'm just wondering if we're expanding it enough so that you're going to take land on both sides, and or is the footprint going to be about the same?
It's actually about the same. If you look at what's there now, gravel to gravel.
What is the width of, what is it, Pitch Pond Road or Sand Hill Road? Not Sand Hill Road,
North Cobtown,
yeah, North Cobb.
20 feet,
It is?
Yep.
Okay,
I believe.
all right.
There's more
Yeah,
structure, really.
This actually is, the road kind of does a little bit of this now.
Yeah,
And in order to have two lanes that you can actually pass somebody, coming the other way without stopping or pulling on somebody's driveway, 18 is about the minimum. And it's really not going to change the footprint of the road much. I think it's more just putting in the right material there to support the cars or vehicles that are traveling on the road.
okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So it sounds like you want to invite Calderwood Road residents to meet with you in the conference room rather than having them come up and speak with you at the podium.
Unless there's some general questions here now.
Yeah, it's entirely up to you folks. This is,
I think the idea was if you had some general questions, maybe ask it here. If you were concerned about a specific of your property, then you get a chance to meet with Nick and Bill in a quiet corner. So if you're embarrassed to ask the question, or you don't want to, tick off your neighbors or us.
yep. Yeah, so anyone is welcome if they have a sort of general question about the project. Or if not, we'll leave you to your individual conversations.
Without asking people to speak, because I know I'd get in trouble if I spoke without coming to the podium. Maybe you could do a little straw poll to see if this met kind of the expectations of the folks that are here, or if it was overboard or underboard, or.
Yeah, are you asking as far as the opinion as to the presentation itself, or?
We just want to make sure that you have the opportunity to be as involved and you understand that we're opening a conduit to be involved and participate and voice your concerns, and that you're getting all the information we're getting too.
Yeah, if you heard something alarming, now would be a good time to say it, because we're headed down that road, so to speak.
Yeah, a lot of
literally and figuratively.
what we're seeing here tonight will have impacts on the bidding process, so once we start applying the dollar figures, we want to make sure that the plan and align.
So I think for Terry, now we're really at the very end of the road, and I think we have access to our property to 173 for a easement. So I guess my biggest concern at the beginning was access up and down the road for 6 months or so. But for Terry and I, we have that access down to 173 through Donnie Hill's driveway.
Yep.
And I don't know, we could probably fix that road up a little bit for 4 months at a time and allow people to go through that way too. So that would help.
Yeah, so there's a question from the audience just regarding access. So I think that that's probably a conversation that would be best run through all of our
That would be very
associates.
generous for somebody to provide that, but you don't often have that kind of generosity. So the contractor who takes this bid has to maintain one-way traffic at all times
Yeah,
during the construction.
yeah. Yeah, access would have. You have to be able to get in and out of your home. But as he said, there may be, a negotiation of like, are you going to be gone for the day? Can we tear this up and have it wrapped up by this time? Or could you park your car down the road a bit so that we can grub around
My
here?
only concern is running a business there.
Yep.
WD,
Yep,
for clients, sometimes for them to be able to get in, drop off and pick up.
yep.
I'm certainly willing to make it work.
So one of the other things that we as a town have to have the road open for is fire protection, police protection, ambulances, things of that nature. So I think he's covered that. Awful nice of Donnie, he offered that up. I don't know if he did, but.
Like I said, perhaps that's a conversation head elsewhere first
But
and
I think
then,
the road is good, from what he says, and it just makes sense. It has to be open.
If it helps, I mean, the other roads we've done recently, I'm trying to think of North Cobtown, Proctor, Heather Hill, Broadus, Tuckerbrook, we've always maintained at least one lane of traffic. Now, there will be periods of time where you have to wait a minute or two, or 5. But, if contractors are very adept, I mean, they kept Route 1 open going through Searsport this year while they're ripping and tearing up through there. Very inconvenient for some people, but if they can do it on Route 1, we can do it on Calderwood Lane without too much difficulty.
yeah. So it sounds like now we'll turn you loose to, get on record, whatever your individual thoughts or concerns are with the gentlemen that are here tonight. And thank you so much for this very comprehensive presentation. Yeah, it's really exciting, especially after the years of
So
that photo really just
one last
captures it.
comment. So
Yeah,
at the beginning of every project, when it's out to bid, there'll be a pre-bid for any prospective bidder. And with some of the comments we'll get from you individual homeowners, those can be put forth to say, hey, we've got a dog care place that needs to be open all the time. And so that's we'll put that right on the plans and bring that up at the pre-bid and also the pre-construction meeting, so it becomes part of the contract. It all sounds idealist too. It doesn't always work as good as you want it to, but I mean, that's the intent.
You can all manage.
I bring my dogs to work, so I'm on your side.
well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And thank you all for coming in. And we encourage you to stay and have fun with us during the rest of the agenda, but we appreciate if you want to go have conversations with the experts too.
So we can use the conference room.
Sorry to leave you alone.
That's okay.
We're used to it.
And so agendas 8 and 9, we're still a few minutes away from our public hearing time. So if the board is amenable, we'll move along to agenda item number 10. Sound good? And it may be worthwhile closing that.
Will you close the door when we get there? Just kick up that kickstand if you would.
So next we have some communication from the Recreation Commission. There's been some ongoing conversations regarding the multi-use bouncy ball court, tennis/pickleball court, use recommendations. David, do you want to speak to this at all?
Only to say Cheryl is here
Yeah.
as the chair or co-chair or representative of the Lincolnville Recreational Commission.
Wonderful. Would you like to come up and address the board?
I would be happy to.
Wonderful, thank you.
So, I'm Cheryl Nevius, and I am, currently, I guess I'm a co-chair at this point. And we did have the pickleball group come to present to us about 2 months ago with a request, and we deliberated that day, but we needed to have yet another one because we just couldn't come to a conclusion at that point. But anyway, we finally did. What they presented was a request to have a sign, number one, have a sign posted with the rules for actual court use, which everyone agreed is really needed. It was reported they had seen, or someone had seen, children skateboarding in there and that sort of thing. So we need something to provide rules. So there is a suggestion that we all came up with, but again, it's just a suggestion based on some of the suggestions that the pickleball group had. So we also, after they had presented their plan for having private time for the pickleball group, we looked at the schedule and considered it, and they were looking for a considerable amount of time. A lot of it was 3 hours in a row, and we felt that was quite, a long time to take over 2 courts. So our recommendation was to offer that time period on a very trial basis for the use of 1 court at those specific times. And the other part of that was, I have to remember now, it was a temporary, they were asking just for this fall, but obviously we couldn't act quickly enough on that. So we said that we would, and again, we had to present it to the board. We can't make that decision for them. So we suggested that it be continued through May 25th, because that would give them plenty of springtime play to see if something like that would be acceptable to everyone else in the community. I did read David's comment. I think those were your comments, David, on the.
Those are mine.
Those are yours. I agreed with that as well. I mean, I think it's something that it's an entire town issue, not just a few people. So we made the recommendation based on what they had requested.
Okay. Questions for Cheryl?
Was there any consideration that 3 hours for 4 days out of a week is a lot of time?
Well, the explanation from the group was that pickleball is extremely different from tennis. And what happens is groups come in and, well, actually the 4 people, say there were 4 people playing, they come in and then 2 come out as they are losers and 2 more come in. And the way they play takes time, but it also provides the court time for quite a few people.
So you're doubling down, in
exactly.
essence.
So there could be 20, 30 people standing there all waiting for their court times. I don't know the actual figures. They gave us sort of a general, this is how many people played pickleball this year. So it was kind of difficult for us to say, well, sure, then divide that by, 20 times, and that's how many people came. We weren't sure about that. But we wanted to be fair in terms of the differences between tennis and pickleball too. It's something new and we didn't know.
Excellent. Well, I think that and I know we have a pickleball enthusiast in the audience, but I think the point is well made that it is, community courts, and that the most fair, and certainly so that I can wrap my head around this and consider all points, would be to have at an upcoming agenda a public hearing, and we can specifically invite pickleballers, tennis folks, and any other interested community members, whether they're skateboarders or what, but invite any users of those courts to come and voice their thoughts and opinions, and we can collate the time frames so that we can have a really clear idea of what it takes to do a pickleball session, and a tennis session and go from there, if that is amenable to the board.
Public hearings are always good.
And then from that, then we can, I think your drafts are a really good starting point. And then we can take the feedback that we receive and then look at creating some sort of policy and associated signage.
My only concern was the new ports and maybe having something temporary, a temporary single sign. I know you said something about 3 signs because of 3 entrances. I don't play any of those games, so I don't go over there, but maybe just 1 sign in a pretty obvious place when you're walking up from the parking lot that has some rules in terms of no skateboarding.
We could certainly do something temporary, like when we closed the facility,
Yeah,
we made, while they're doing the resurfacing, we made some homemade signs or home office signs.
yeah.
And just put them in a little plastic sleeve and then just zip tied them to the gate.
I'd be amenable to that. I mean, it's not unlike saying don't put anything other than toilet paper down a toilet.
Yeah.
Sort of obvious, please, tennis shoes and balls only
Some
on
of
the
the
on the
basic
court,
rules, yeah.
Something straightforward so that we can protect the investment we just made.
Right.
Is the board in agreement with that?
I'd like to see a sign up there, yeah. just
Okay.
Because the town did spend
Yeah.
some money. It's nice to keep it.
Yeah, we want to
clean.
preserve it so
Yeah,
people can
yeah.
enjoy.
The other nice thing about a temporary sign, one, it takes some time to make the permanent sign,
Yeah.
particularly if it's not something standard off the shelf, which
Yeah.
it sounds like this won't be.
Yeah.
And we may learn something from
Get feedback
a
from
trial period.
the.
of,
Yep.
Well, don't say I have to wear, I don't know, non-marking shoes, because
Right.
run around barefoot.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern is anything that's going to damage the courts, maybe no
Yeah.
pets, the things that are pretty obvious, then maybe a final, please be courteous,
Right.
Yeah.
These are community courts.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds good. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, yeah.
Greta, would you like to come up and address?
Thank you.
Knowing that there will be an opportunity for you to get into it at length.
So Greta Galesian, Searsmart Road. Thank you for having this on the agenda. Thank you for putting it. A couple of things I would just like to speak to. Number one, the pickleball people who play, we are not a club. We are not an organized group. We are just players from the community, as tennis players would be. We have not asked for any private time. When we play pickleball, which is different than tennis, it's open play, meaning that we're there and we set up the portable nets that we fundraised for and provide. We have loaner paddles, we have balls, and anyone can come and join us. So it's different than tennis when 2 people come to play singles or 4 people come to play doubles. They're not inviting the community to join them. So that's one of the big differences in pickleball and tennis. So it's not private. It really is community open play, and it's drop-in. So that's why, I mean, these are shared courts, and I am a lifelong tennis player, and I support tennis as strongly as I can for Lincolnville. They are now dual-use courts because they have lines for both. When we presented to the Rec Commission in August, we had done research and we had presented other communities in the Mid-Coast, as well as just generally, nationally, that have shared courts. All communities don't have those. Some are just designated tennis, some are just designated pickleball, but it's frequent that there are shared courts. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are ways where it can be managed simply. And I love David's suggestion of a public hearing. The other thing I would like to say is I encourage everyone to come on a Sunday. We have been inviting, suggesting, encouraging Recreation Commission members and Select Board members to just come down there some Saturday or Sunday morning so that you can visually see the difference. So on a Sunday, we have 4 painted courts now. That means 16 people are playing, and there may be 4 or 6 people waiting to rotate in. And over the course of 2 hours or 3 hours, all of those people get to play. And people come and people go. They don't have to be there for the whole time. So I think it'll be easier to formulate a very equitable policy so everybody can have equal access. If people would just come and visually see the difference, it's not going to be hard to figure this out. I'm really glad we're going to have a policy, because that then means there will be community access equitably. When we asked for those designated times, it is 14% of the daylight hours in a week. So it's, it sounds like a lot when you say, oh, it's 3 hours, that's way too long. An average tennis game, doubles usually takes about 1.5 hours to 1 hour and 45 minutes. They're usually there for 2 hours. It's fine. If you want to, have pickleball be 2 hours instead of 3 hours, that's fine. And then just to have some nice court etiquette that says something like, if people are waiting, whether it's for tennis or pickleball, and you're already on the court, please consider limiting your time to 1 hour or less, so people can go away and have a cup of coffee. So I love the public meeting access, and I really hope somehow the Rec Commission and the town can get tennis players to get involved, because it'll work out just fine. We have gorgeous courts down there now. So thank you for getting it on the agenda. We do need a court policy just so people can plan their lives and access is amenable. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And we'll look forward to seeing you at the public hearing
Okay.
or public meeting. Yeah, thank you.
Do you know how that would be, or when?
We'll just have to, David and I will put our heads together about agendas.
At a regular select board meeting?
I think so, yeah.
I don't think it would be. And if it gets to be tricky, then we could just, have a little some ad hoc thing.
Yep.
And come back with.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item 11, little follow-up discussion regarding the presentation we received at our last select board meeting from the MDOT / Main State Ferry Service projects that they are gearing up for. David, do you want to speak to this at all?
I think it's important if we can somehow, as a community, decide what it is we value. And not to say the whole project isn't important, but excuse me, whether the boat is white or blue or green, I don't know if that matters to the community. But certainly construction is going to be a short-term challenge for the community, because there'll be parking implications, there'll be water implications, there'll be user implications for people coming and going. There's an opportunity. They talked about some of their equipment possibly being elevated over parking spots, which is great for parking, but might not be for people's traditional views of the water. Somehow we need to decide what's truly important for us as a community, so that when we talk with DOT as their process moves forward, we know what we really value and what, I won't say doesn't matter to us, but isn't quite as important to us.
Yeah. Did Mackenzie indicate that they would be willing to come and hold a public forum?
Don't remember that.
I don't remember
In our
that.
conversation.
So I have two thoughts. So I guess the first thing is, it seems like that might be a good way to go, is inviting neighbors to the project. and anyone from our community, harbor users, et cetera. And if we could get them to come and facilitate some sort of public listening forum, that could be really good. And the second piece that has been on my mind that dovetails with our harbor committee, because we did just have a harbor user / the harbor committee chair come in and give us some strong thoughts he has on the current functionality. But essentially, I would like this board to task or charge the harbor committee with having a meeting soon to review their Mackenzie's presentation, and look at that against the current ongoing projects, future projects, and how that all blends with basically harbor infrastructure priorities and expenditures. So it's sort of a two-part task of the harbor committee to specifically review this presentation and assign a list of priorities that are either in conjunction or divergent from the current list of priorities. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. I had a sort of concern after our meeting, thinking about it in the last week and being down at the beach and kind of looking at things. Okay, so my first concern was that they say it's already a done deal, that it's a 40-car ferry, more people.
Yeah.
Because that's what the islanders wanted. And that, the more I think about it, the more it bothers me that it's such a one-sided thing. And I got the impression that part of why they wanted a bigger ferry was, access, backup, restricted access to the ferry, length of time waiting for it, and all of it. But then when we talked about how it's going to be a different design where it doesn't have to turn, so the crossings will be quicker. After I'm thinking, well, why not just have a couple of more crossings in each day? And then you don't have to have a bigger ferry, which the point of the bigger ferry, everything cascades from, with needing the bigger pier and, more parking. And
yeah, I think there's a couple issues at play. One is the grant was for this hybrid electric ferry. And in order to have a hybrid electric ferry of similar size to what we have now, it has to be bigger to accommodate all of the infrastructure, the batteries and the engines. She spoke extensively. Yeah, she spoke extensively about and they're still finalizing the design of the ferry, but that they're trying to find that balance of where to put all the batteries, where to put the engines and the diesel electric generators, all within a footprint which by default makes it that much bigger, which by default allows them more passengers on the boat. But I agree with your concerns. I mean, it's a little chicken or the egg, because they went for this grant, they got this grant, and I think because of pressures from all sides, and as we know, the DOT's job is to get vehicles from one destination to another destination. So however they're going to do that is how they're going to do that. But I think they're certainly not going to go for a smaller boat. It sounds like that's.
Well, I wasn't thinking of smaller as in decreased capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see if you needed a bigger boat because you need more space for batteries and things like that, but
yeah,
still having the same number, just seemed okay.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's
what came across to me, and I know it was Zooming, which is unfortunate to me, but was that it was very much a one-sided beginning. Like, they only asked the islands. And
we were not
and
part
it's
of
not
it.
only the island, Right, they're only the one side, you know,
Yeah.
we're also a partner in this.
Yeah, yeah.
Though I imagine Lincolnville had the opportunity to participate as Islesboro did.
Not that,
It did not
I-
sound like
I-
that from
I
what
don't
they
know.
said. They surveyed the islands.
Yeah, no,
to
I
find out
know.
what they want.
When
I
they
don't-
solicited a
Support.
letter of support from us, we said, sorry.
And that was the first we heard of it.
Yeah, we haven't been involved in this. We should have been.
and their explanation for that is that they basically had 2 weeks to get
Oh, I
their stuff
remember that,
together,
yeah,
yeah.
So
I
that,
mean-
that kind of explains the why one-sided, although you're right, they have done a fair amount of research. What does the island need, you know, that type of
They
thing.
surveyed
Yeah.
them. They built something based on,
Yeah,
I think they also start a lot of their conversation with their advisory board, which Lincolnville for a long time had a member on, but we don't currently.
Yeah, she wasn't aware. She said, oh, so it's the Island Institute, she rattled off a number of
Yeah.
entities.
we're talking about the new harbor plan, the ferry.
So, yeah. But
Yeah, so, yes, so the point being, back to David's point, is that we as a community, we're given an open door. Or we stuffed our foot in the crack in the door, and now we're making the gap wider to have a seat at the table. And so my point was, because it's going to be an ongoing conversation, certainly I think board members should identify priorities, but having a listening session of neighbors and users of that facility, if we can get that to collate those ideas or concerns, and then we as a board can identify a list of what Lincolnville needs or are concerns that need to be addressed. And as part of that, because our harbor committee is our advisory arm for the waterfront facilities, and given that there's ongoing projects, there's projects that need to happen, and we're going into budget season, tasking specifically the harbor committee to have a meeting in the next month or two. I'm not sure. I'm gonna ask the harbor master's opinion on that, but specifically, leaning on them hard to weigh in the presentation. Hopefully they could maybe watch the presentation.
it's available
'Cause
anybody in the world.
There's nuances there that are certainly more than just the PowerPoint presentation. And have them come up with a list of priorities or advice for us to consider, for us to then really structure how we are going to interface with this project, whether we end up appointing someone to attend some of these meetings, have a seat at the table. I don't have a really clear sense of what will be the most constructive. It sounds like they have a lot of meetings, so I don't think we want to task someone to go with all of the meetings, but certainly it sounds like they have a very dynamic way of making decisions. So being as involved as a body like this can be seems really important.
It's very important, yeah.
Yes, and do we have a good sense of the timeline that they're working under? Like, so that we know how fast we need to move to be getting our public engagement?
She indicated that they were hoping to have the naval engineers be done with the design work. So have that design of the boat finalized by January, by the new year. And that essentially, I think they're looking at building in 26, 27.
We're looking to be done by 27 for sure.
Right, done by 27.
So,
They got a long way to go.
having those design plans done so they can send it out to bid, so then they can look at having the boat be constructed and then over, I want to say 25 and 26 winters, having the construction happen. I believe that was the timeline that you laid out.
The other thing I didn't see in my notes afterward were, I just can't remember what the useful life was being considered, especially for the pier. And, I mean, boats float, but with sea level change and storm surge and stuff, I wasn't clear that they were, planning any kind of change to the existing pier other than the extension. And I was wondering how, if they, I can't imagine that they didn't, but since they didn't mention it, I worry that they haven't thought about where are we going to be in 20 years with this pier.
Yep, well, we should certainly add that to the list of, how, I mean, ultimately, my perspective is that how can we evolve our facility in conjunction with this project that's happening, and not that we just get run over and squished in the process. And certainly that, we're all thinking about those long-term coastal resiliency aspects and, investing all of that money in that facility. And the number they keep throwing around is 25 years. But what's the 0 to 25 year conversation? Yeah.
Well, let's see. I took, I guess, liberty as MCOG rep of reaching out to MCOG and asking if they would be willing to assist in any conversations with the DOT. And basically, and I got an email Friday from them. It's too late to include in the packet. So I know that we're not in the habit of distributing papers.
Well, you can give us the gist of it.
Yeah, the gist of it, they said, sure, let us know what you need.
Okay.
Yeah, and.
Well, if we could have some sort of public forum with, the vested parties, that could be a good intersection.
Yeah, and they're willing to facilitate any of those things or sit down with coffee with players or just get started. But I think, I know A.D. Filson and Matt Eddy both have said to me, they both recognize the importance of getting to the DOT as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And getting on notice. We want to be involved from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah. And it all comes back to having a really clear list of priorities, asks, / demands.
Sure, exactly.
to hammer on essentially with them. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. Thanks for doing that. Do you have a?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if I heard it.
I was just taking a breath.
Okay.
That was his blank look.
I do have another question. Yeah, because I'm almost positive the person with the least amount of knowledge of boats in general, piers. Our current public system is physically adjacent to the pier.
Yeah,
right?
it branches off of 173.
Right. Branches off.
Yes, yeah.
That's the way they.
173 goes down and then magically out across the ferry pen,
Pretty cool.
and then continues all the way over to Islesboro to there, and then bloop. Yep, that's how they
realize
that's
It's not paved or anything, but it's there.
Right, it's there.
just so you know. Yeah, or just a left off of 173. Yes.
It's cool. You can take it all the way to Islesboro. I
I've
had
been
no
on it
idea.
myself.
We're the vestigial limb. Yeah. Yeah.
But do we get to use some of the pier improvements? Like, can we be attaching stuff to it? Sorry for the really bad language.
Yeah, no, but that,
I don't know what to call it.
and that is a question.
And that's part of,
Yeah.
right, so we might have an opportunity to use some of this longer pier too to have infrastructure.
Yeah, and that's where, having the harbor committee look at this, you know, in a really big picture, long-term kind of way, hopefully, to look at that, because we have, and you're going to start hearing me talk about this, you know, we've had board priority workshops before budget committee time so that we can look at the whole gamut of what we've got going on current, what's been in the queue, what is in the queue, what may be coming up in the queue, and certainly mixed up in there is a lot of harbor stuff. And so with this, you know, looking at that intersection of, okay, we've got this facility as it exists now, it's certainly going to be impacted. I cannot believe that it won't be impacted either by this ferry project or their parking project, whatever that looks like. And so getting the people who use that facility every day and, you know, and all the rest of us who pay for it, to seriously consider, is there an opportunity to improve what we have? Yeah, it's a great question.
Well, one thing that occurs to me is that this process of working with the Harbor Committee and all the other interested parties just makes a heck of a lot of sense, and it's going to be a very good learning experience. But I hope during that process, we don't kind of get sidetracked by the parking issue. As we learn how to do the pier right.
Right.
You know, and we learn that we don't get sidetracked by, oh my heavens, the parking is.
Agreed.
But we use it as a learning experience to do the same darn thing
Yeah.
with the parking project.
Well,
they're separate but equal type of thing.
Yeah, to inform that and capitalize on any opportunities
Yeah.
that might present themselves along the way.
I mean, at the end of the day, we won't, when it's all said and done, you can't separate the two.
Yeah.
Parking.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I hope we don't get, like I said, get sidetracked.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. Any input, David?
No, I didn't really know where to steer, so I just
Well,
threw it out there.
do you want a motion for
If you-
tasking the harbor committee? Is that
if you have
clearer?
Clear things you would like from the harbor committee, a motion would be most helpful so that that clearly can be articulated to them.
All right, let me think. I move that we task the town administrator with charging the harbor committee, that the select board charge the harbor committee with viewing and reviewing the presentation that we watched from Mackenzie from the MDOT, and to consider any concerns or priorities as they relate to the harbor facility and how those may affect ongoing projects or future projects.
Second.
Discussion.
I'm not a board member, I'll wait.
Can we kind of assign a deadline
Yes,
to them
thank you.
reporting back?
Excellent. What sort of deadline seems most reasonable? I mean, they are required to, according to the laws of the land, they're required to weigh in on a number of things by November. So I would think that by the end of October seems reasonable for them to have this priorities conversation and at the same time review those tasks that they have to present to us in November.
And would we have then the public hearing would then get scheduled after they return their priorities to us, or?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
And this is a quick enough turnaround for us to still be keeping our foot in the door with the DOT?
We don't know that.
Yeah.
We can't know that. I mean, unless, we can't.
But I don't think it would.
But it can go on in parallel.
Correct.
with us.
Yeah, I think any efforts can happen concurrently. Yeah. So what do you think about the end of October?
I was thinking maybe you'd ask them to report back to you on your meeting on the 23rd of October.
Perfect, that's
That'd be
great.
great.
I didn't have that number in my head,
That's
so,
why I have a calendar.
yeah, excellent.
Thanks
So
for attending.
I'll amend my motion to include, to present their recommendations to the Board of Selectmen at our October 23rd meeting.
I will second the amendment to your original motion.
Okay,
We get to vote on the amendment.
yes,
Yes.
correct, because it supersedes the original motion.
You gotta love Robert's rules.
Totally. Gotta pay attention. You gotta be taking your vitamins to pay. David, did you have,
At 7 o'clock.
No, that's good.
yeah, I know.
I understand.
Okay. So wrapping this up, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Thank you all very much, and then we'll look to have the public forum. 'Cause
Well,
we're-
we just voted on the amendment. Now we have to vote on the motion.
yes, thank you. So no further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you all very much. And it is 7:12, so we're shockingly late for our public hearing for all of the public that is here to weigh in.
He's like,
So far, yeah.
So very quickly, is there anything further on agenda item number 11?
Should I alert Mackenzie that we'd like to have at some point a public forum with stakeholders?
Yes.
So she can get that in her brain. Know that we haven't just faded off to the.
Yeah, I
Hopefully
think we should
sometime
keep
in
DOT Mackenzie,
Get on the queue.
alerted at every step of the way, what
Yeah.
we're doing.
Yep.
Sounds good. Okay, now that it's 7 PM, we're going to jump back to agenda item number 8, and I first need a motion, please.
I move to open a public hearing concerning the Winter Road closing of the Martin Corner Road, Title 23, Section 2953.
So moved?
Second.
Seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you much. The public hearing is now open. Any members of the public that wish to get up and address the board or the general public regarding the annual winter road closing of Martin Corner Road is welcome to. Seeing none, I will entertain a second motion, please.
Well, I move to close the public hearing concerning the possible Winter Road closing of the Martin Corner Road.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And having held a public hearing, and now that it is closed, the select board is welcome to deliberate the issue, or if there's no deliberation, I will entertain a motion.
And the following a public hearing pursuant to Title 23 MRSA. Yeah.
paragraph.
Yeah,
Isn't
okay.
that-
29532. And
Subsection.
due deliberation, it is the opinion of the municipal officers of the town of Lincolnville that the Martin Corner Road from 171 Martin Corner Road to its end at Moody Mountain Road is so located with reference to population, use, and travel thereon that it is unnecessary to keep it maintained and open for travel during the months of November, December, January, February, March, and April.
So moved
Second.
and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Any closing words on this, David?
No.
Excellent. And since it is still 7 o'clock, and we have a second public hearing regarding general assistance ordinance, I will entertain a first motion, please.
I move to open a public hearing concerning general assistance ordinance, including appendices A through I.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. You're welcome, the public, to the podium to speak about general assistance ordinance, including appendices A through I. Having heard from the public, I welcome a second motion, please.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. Having had the public hearing and now that this is closed, I will entertain a final motion, please.
I move that the board adopt the 2023 General Assistance Ordinance Appendices A through H with an effective date of October 1st, 2023.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion is,
Why is it only?
We were
Should I-
considering A through I, but
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
we're,
Hang on,
we're hearing only A through H.
hang on.
And we've only got through Appendix H.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because it's only A through H.
Okay.
well, we were really comprehensive in the public
That's good to say,
hearing.
yeah.
We were.
Motion stands. Did we have a second?
Yes, we did.
Excellent, right, we were having discussion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Now we have caught back up with ourselves. We have agenda item number 12, which I asked to have as a topic of conversation, largely as a result of some of the communication issues that were happening with the Recreation Commission and meetings, but it unfortunately or fortunately applies, I think, to really all of our committees and commissions. That I think now that we're back in the public forum, we're back having meetings in person, it would be wise for us to, in a structured way, remind our committees of the policies that they must follow, both for in-person meetings and remote meeting policies, because we want to make sure that the public is being involved in the most fair and transparent way possible. And just to take that opportunity to educate or re-educate or remind any of our chairs so that they can then pass that on to their committees and commissions, so that we're all, pulling on the same rope and in the same direction. And so that we know that our committees and commissions are doing the people's work and not wandering astray. And so my suggestion is that rather than trying to drag it out over several select board meetings, which could be really cumbersome, to ask the board to appoint myself with the town administrator to meet one-on-one with the committee chairs, share the gospel, and revisit if necessary as a board. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, makes a lot,
Yeah.
yeah, makes sense to me, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, beyond the suggested motion that we just rope our town administrator in on that to officially, because I think having two sets of ears in there with the chairs would be
Sure.
would be good. And I welcome any other thoughts on this.
I think it's needed. I think it's been needed for a while.
Yeah.
And I feel that full well knowing that there are probably some who just don't know
Yeah.
what the policies and procedures
Oh, yeah,
are.
Yeah,
I think there becomes a certain amount of, I don't think lazy is the word, lackadaisical.
well, it's a lot for
It
a
is.
volunteer person
It is.
who's just trying to help their town out to consider all of
Yes.
the fine language, so to speak. Yeah,
Everybody runs things a little bit different, but they gotta look at the guidance. They really do. I agree.
yeah, thank you.
So, excuse me, lately, did I hear you say that you'd like a motion to include language that includes the town
Yes.
administrator?
Yes.
Okay, good, yeah. So, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
If we are ready, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so then I move that the board authorize Lately Dunn to call a meeting of the board, committee, and commission chairs and the town administrator to review with them the expectations set forth in the board's, committees, and commissions' roles and guidelines.
So moved and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. Any follow-up thoughts on that, David?
Nope.
We'll I think scheduling will be
You
the
and
fun
I-
part.
You and I will get our schedules together
Yeah.
and then we'll throw some options. in.
Yep, and then we'll report back to you all.
Okay.
Thank you all for that. Then moving along to the annual engagement of the independent auditor. David, do you wish to speak to this at all?
Sure, we're required to have an annual outside independent auditor review the work of those of us in the town office. And William Brewer has been doing it for a number of years and has sent forth an engagement letter that's for the select board to consider. And a lot of times I'll ask that the select board authorize me to sign something, but since this is your required review of our work, including my work, I wouldn't want to sign it. That's why I suggested the chair.
Yep.
Sign it.
Yep. So I'll entertain a motion, please.
I move that the board authorize Chair Laidley Dunn,
Sure,
Okay.
that works.
Chair Laidley Dunn, as chair of the board, to sign the engagement letter with William H. Brewer to conduct the annual audit.
So moved
Second?
and seconded. Any discussion?
I don't know if this is where this should be asked, but with regards to audit, probably a two-part question. How have we made out with the school's information for our audit purposes?
We are awaiting the final draft of the audit so that I can, as town administrator, write the management discussion and analysis. It was slow and painful, I think is the best way to describe getting information from the school, primarily, I believe due to a lot of the grants they obtained and not necessarily having manpower to keep up with that. I believe when Mr. Brewer is done with the FY22 audit, that he will be requesting to meet with the select board and the school committee to present that in its findings to you. And he may have recommendations to go with it.
Okay. So with that being said, personally, I feel we should take a harder stance if the information is not forthcoming when we need it or by the timeline. And that's just a personal thought of my own right now.
I will say that not to interrupt, but the school superintendent put in the last superintendent's report that her goal was to have the FY23 audit, which is the one you'll be signing tonight, completed by the end of the calendar year, which is when they're supposed to have the audits completed by.
A novel idea.
I was gonna say, perhaps that was the goal last year and the year before?
Yeah, okay.
No, I think it was the goal.
I'm
yeah.
not sure it was as well articulated in
Okay,
previous
gotcha.
years, even if that's what's spelled out in the rules
I
of
didn't
law.
mean to derail.
Yeah, no, I
I
think,
just felt that if we're engaging somebody to do something audit-wise, then that's part of the information that we need.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and certainly I think we'll be poking the bear as that deadline approaches.
Thank you, David.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And moving along, select people updates. Karen, do you have one for
I
us?
have no update.
All right. D. Michael Ray, do you know?
Yeah, the woodshed got rebuilt, and so.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so we've got that, and also the head of the woodshed, Bob McGregor, said he will be ordering chain link fence, so it's secure,
Okay,
as can be.
great.
Yeah,
That's
but
great.
the thing's up and running, and there'll probably be a truck delivering a few cords.
So I
next week or
see
so.
they need Waldo County needs manager for that? Is that
For
what?
for
For the
what?
woodshed?
I did not know that.
No, I think it was in, on the Republican Journal side of, Village Soup.
Oh, well, I know that, I think one of their board members stepped down. So maybe they're looking for a new board member? Kern, you'd
thought they-
be perfect for that, in that role.
No. I would not. No.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure not gonna do it.
I'm just, yeah.
If anyone's interested, reach out to the Waldo County
Yeah,
Woodshed Project.
no, I didn't know anything
Okay.
about that, yeah.
I think it's perhaps not to sidetrack this conversation. It might also be good, select person Ray, if you might articulate for anybody out there what they should do, should they like to acquire wood from the woodshed so that they don't think that they can just drive in there and help themselves whenever they want.
Call first. That's the only way you're allowed to have wood. And call first and make an appointment with our dispatcher, and she will direct you to a depot at a certain hour, where there'll be somebody like me or another volunteer who will get that wood into your vehicle.
And those phone numbers can be obtained online?
It's online on the waldocountywoodshed.org, their Facebook page, and the town website has had that information on our website front page for the last 2 years. It's probably time to do it again. And come to think of it, I should probably say then that the woodshed will be taking orders through the phone. You got to call first. You can't just show up and take wood. The last week of October, looking at the first week in November for the actual distribution. Our place will be open on Saturdays, 7 to 9 a.m.
And can folks call the town office also and get that phone
We'll
number?
gladly share the phone number
Great.
with anybody.
Yeah,
that-
telephone number is 207-338-2692.
Look at this. Excellent. Well, that was a very comprehensive.
And just,
update.
just so it's abundantly clear, somebody just can't show up at off hours and just help themselves.
No, they may not.
By appointment only.
And
Starting in the end of October.
yes, and maybe I should just mention that there are security measures in place, should someone do that. They might not want to do that because it's going to the cloud.
Yep.
You know?
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. That's a very comprehensive update. Robin, do you have an update for us?
I do not have enough.
And I also have nothing, so we'll move along to the treasurer and payroll warrants. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve and sign the treasurer's and payroll warrants.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? See no discussion. All those in favor? Thank you all very much. And if there is no further business the board wishes to address, I will entertain a final motion, please.
second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
There we go.
Thank you all very much for doing the good work.
Has anybody ever discussed an adjournment?
I